Yes, would you like to tell everyone a little bit more about Come Over October and how you came to start that initiative?
Sure. You know, for centuries, wine has been, as we know, a communal beverage that brings people together. And this past spring, I grew sort of increasingly alarmed um, by the sort of negative way wine was being talked about. And I kept thinking to myself, why isn't the positive story of wine being told? And among other things, a lot of the pieces journalistically about wine this past spring had sort of reduced wine merely to alcohol. And to me, wine is more than alcohol. Wine is threaded into a very rich tapestry of culture and history and religion and art. And you know, if all you wanted was alcohol, there are faster and cheaper ways than having a glass of Napa Valley Cabernet with dinner. So at first I thought, well, I'm just going to jump into the fray as a journalist too, and I will write an article. And then I realized something had really changed in the whole culture. And an article wasn't going to be enough. And I began to envision what it might be like if every wine drinker in the whole country just did something very simple in honor of wine, and that would be to invite a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, a family member to come over and share some wine. And as a writer, I liked the idea, the rhyme of Come Over October, and so Come Over October was born. I called two friends, both of whom own their own marketing and PR agencies, who I've known for a long time, and I knew that they would tell me if they thought this was a bad idea. And they both said, this is actually a really good idea. And so the three of us formed a small mission-driven company to execute the Come Over October campaign. And it has been so successful. As of 2 days ago, we had reached 1.7 billion people in the last 3 months, which is when we announced the campaign was 3 months ago. So it has really touched a nerve, I think, a positive nerve among wine drinkers everywhere, and it's actually mushroomed into an international campaign. At this point, among our patrons now and friends are wines of Australia, wines of New Zealand, wines of South Africa, wines of Chile, the Champagne Bureau, the Chianti Classico Bureau, Prosecco, the Mosel producers. I mean, Come Over October has just caught on fire internationally.
Absolutely, and hardly a day goes by when I don't see an announcement about several other organizations or individuals that are joining the movement as well. So I think that's absolutely terrific, because for so long all you've heard is just negative things about wine and everything else. So I definitely think it was necessary, and it was high time that we had an initiative like this.
Yeah, and you know, it doesn't matter if you are relatively new to wine or you're, you know, a connoisseur. We all know that you can be, you know, you can find yourself next to someone who is a complete stranger. They ask you about the wine. Pretty soon you're reaching over, pouring them a glass. And by the end of sharing some wine with someone, you have become that person's friend. And there is no other beverage in history like that. I think one of the reasons wine has been the beverage of Judeo-Christian religion is its capacity to bring people together in creating new friendships and deepening old ones. It's really quite miraculous that wine can do that.
I agree, and it's just such an enriching product to enjoy, especially when you're traveling, and you can immerse yourselves in the local cuisine at the same time. And as they say, what grows together goes together. And it's amazing, even when you travel, just if you embrace the local customs and the local wine, how much you can enjoy that as well.
Yeah, it's people stay at the dinner table longer. A friend of mine likes to say they laugh louder, they converse about deeper issues. There are all kinds of things that happen over wine, and one of the ways that I know that as a journalist is when you ask someone what's the greatest wine they ever had. Actually, sometimes people can't remember exactly what the wine is, but they always remember who they were with. And that's fascinating psychologically.
It is, yeah, of course. Then you have some friends as well who remember absolutely every single wine they had and all the special occasions they had it and all the minute details. So, for example, I can't remember what I had for breakfast last week, but I remember the last time I had a 1982 Pichon Lalande, for example. So.
Well, that implies that you've had it a lot. I don't know. That wine could be a little hard to get your hands on these days.
It is, but it's definitely memorable, and so I certainly remember all those occasions and who was there, and so
yeah,
certainly, and definitely all those moments you share with friends, you really don't forget. For example, when the Dallas Mavericks were winning the NBA championship about 10 years ago, we had a particular wine that someone poured afterwards, and it was Chateau d'Yquem, but we had it with pizza, which isn't the typical pairing for that, but I just remember that because everything was just so memorable to experience that moment of celebration with everyone. It's just something I'll never forget.
Yeah, definitely. Why do you think wine does that?
I think certainly for those who are passionate about it, it's just so enriching, and I like it because I tend to be somewhat analytical, and so there's the history and there's all the different factors that go into why the wine is like it is. All the different decisions you can make in the vineyard or in the winery when you're producing the wine, and how even a wine from the same area can be totally different, just depending on the production method that was used, whether they use new oak, for example, or large neutral oak, or any number of variables. And so I found that I liked certain wines more than others, and then I became somewhat interested in finding out why that was the case. And so with Pinot Noir, for example, I figured out that I really enjoy wine that was made with whole cluster fermentation. And so then I started seeking out all the different Pinot Noir that was produced that way. That's just one example, but I think because of that, you're able to, regardless of what your palate is, you're able to find something that you really enjoy and get excited about, or that will pair perfectly with one of your favorite meals and that you can share with friends for celebrations or other occasions, and it just enriches the whole experience, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Wine, I think, from the very beginning of time, it has always been served, even at the time of the Greeks. This is way before the invention of cylindrical bottles. But wine still was served in multi-serving containers. It was always implied that you were not going to drink this alone. It wasn't a scotch and soda or something. It was something that no offense, scotch, but it was something that you were going to share. And the other thing that I find remarkable about the behavior of people with wine is that when they have a really interesting wine, they think about who they might open it with. Right? And certain wines you think, oh, this person would really appreciate this, or this person would really love this wine. And so we even think about wine, we think about the gift of wine too, in the context of someone else. And so wine by its very nature implies a kind of generosity. That's an important part of it, and that sort of demarcates it from other types of beverages that have alcohol in them. What we have found right now is that people all over the country and all over the world are doing Come Over October events, sometimes as simple as just, you know, opening a nice bottle with your partner or spouse this coming Saturday night, or sometimes doing something outdoors or getting a group of friends together. But it's been fabulous. I mean, I'm coming to you from the Napa Valley, and the Napa Valley, just on the heels of what was a very quick harvest, people are celebrating by inviting people to come over and share some wine. Come over to the winery, come over to your house, come over to a restaurant, come over to a picnic table outside. So it's, yeah, the idea is really resonating, and it's resonating across all ages. It doesn't matter if you're 22 or 62 or 82. The idea of getting together to share something is maybe even more important than ever, given our divisive world right now.
I completely agree. We do have a question here. Someone is wondering if you have a specific, most memorable experience where wine has brought you together with someone else.
I have had so many experiences like that. I mean, I think almost all of my friends are friends that I have made in the wine industry. I just came back from both the Mosel region of Germany and South Africa on 2 separate trips. I met dozens of people who I didn't know, and who now should they come to the Napa Valley, they will come over to my house. They are now friends. And so I think it would be harder for me to imagine a case in which I didn't, where wine did not kind of lead to a wonderful friendship.
I think it's pretty much the same for me. It has just become such a part of my everyday life and routine that it's really a rare occasion when it's not part of when I visit with someone or when I'm on a trip or some other occasion. And even
Right.
a lot of my legal clients now are people who are typically very interested in wine because we just sort of gravitate together.
What are you planning on doing for Come Over October?
I'm actually leaving for Australia in the morning, so that should be fun. And I'll be visiting, I'll have day trips to 3 different regions. So I'll be in Hunter Valley one day, and then Mornington Peninsula another day, and the Yarra Valley another day.
Nice. Very nice. Well, Louisa Rose, who is a very legendary winemaker in Australia. She was the chief winemaker for Yalumba, the oldest family-owned winery in Australia. Was just in our office here a couple of days ago, and Australia certainly gets the idea of, you know, they are such an outgoing and friendly people, the Australians. So it was lovely to have her toasting to Come Over October right from here in the Napa Valley.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. And then last week we actually got together. We have a tasting group that meets maybe once a quarter, and we usually have a different theme for the tasting each time. And last week we did a 2009 Bordeaux blend tasting. So we checked in on some Bordeaux blends from around the world, including some of your neighbors there that were about 15 years old, and tasted through some of those, and we did it single blind. So we went through them and talked about the wines and tried to identify which was which, and a really terrific evening.
Great. I see a question there about what do I think about zero alcohol wine. Actually, part of one of our patrons for the Come Over October campaign is a no alcohol wine. No alcohol wines are very big in Germany. Almost every important producer makes one. And here in the United States, they're growing in importance. But more importantly than that even, is that they're growing in quality. One of our patrons for the campaign is a new alcohol-free wine called Tomorrow Cellars. And I know the managing partner of the firm fairly well, and she has told me all of the efforts that both she and other no alcohol producers are going to attempt to hold flavor into no alcohol wine. That's the hard part. The hard part is not getting the alcohol out. That's very easy to do technologically. What's hard is to get the alcohol out and not have the flavor and aroma go out as well. So I think that no alcohol wines right now are a really good option for people who want them occasionally or want them always. But I think we should all be poised to know that they'll be even better in the near future.
That is good information for sure. I also saw two questions. One was if you think that the quality level of wine has been decreasing. And I would say, at least in my experience, it's actually never been higher. And I think there's amazing wine being produced all over the world, but I'm not sure what you think about that.
I wonder why the person thinks that is the case. I don't think the quality of wine has been decreasing at all. I think our ability to predict weather, among other things, not change weather, but predict weather, has allowed grape growers, to manage their vineyards with more intensity and more fine-tunedness. I think winemakers, even winemakers who have pretty much a hands-off philosophy, winemakers are still more trained than they've ever been in the history of mankind. So it doesn't mean I think all wines are good. All wines are not good, but the good wines from good places are almost uniformly better than they have ever been before.
Yeah, that's certainly my experience as well. And we have a question here. What are your thoughts on wine from Mexico? Have you tried any Mexican wines?
Yeah, I've tried a lot of Mexican wines. Mexico, of course, where I am in California, was once part of Mexico before the United States, before California was ceded from the Mexican government to the United States. And then subsequently after that, California became a state. But before that, California belonged to Mexico, and you can see why, because really the Baja Peninsula of Mexico is just an extension of California. In fact, its actual name is Baja California. And California was Alta California, Upper California. In any case, Mexico makes wines much like California's, meaning that they are usually pretty ripe. There's a lot of sun there. They have full bodies as a result and lots of flavor. I think one of the things that Mexico will achieve in the next couple of years is a growing population of very talented winemakers. Historically in Mexico, many winemakers kind of learn just on the job, which is fine, but there are starting to be more and more very well-trained winemakers in Mexico that I think will inch up the quality even more.
Sort of like what happened with some of their restaurants in Mexico City and other places where some world-renowned chefs moved there, and now they have some of the world's best restaurants there as well.
Yeah, will the production of cheap wine reduce as production of good wine increases? Well, cheap wine can be bad, but cheap wine can sometimes be good as well. And there are certain places, Spain, Australia, to some extent New Zealand, where very good wines cost $4 a glass. And those are wines being sold here, which is almost hard to believe. That's a $20 bottle, right? But I think we can't think about wine quite that way. There are really two wine worlds. There's the world of beverage wine, inexpensive wine, let's say under $25 a bottle. And then there's the world of fine wine, very the high end of the spectrum, wines that you don't necessarily see in any kind of a supermarket, that you really have to go to a wine shop or a special digital wine shop like wine.com. So those, one doesn't so much influence the other, except that lots of producers of beverage wine are moving into the fine wine world because, as it turns out, people for a long time now have been drinking less but drinking better. And that's been true for every beverage in the United States, from coffee. I mean, you may not remember, John, you might not be old enough, but I remember when a cup of coffee in New York on Madison Avenue and 42nd Street, where I worked, was 35 cents in the local Greek deli. And now a latte on Madison Avenue and 42nd Street on the Starbucks there is about $7. So people have been drinking less but drinking better across every beverage category. So that will, I think, continue.
And of course, there's also a lot of producers that have offerings at numerous price points as well, from more entry level all the way up to some exclusive collectible wines as well. So just because a wine may have a lower price point doesn't necessarily mean it would be classified as a cheap wine, I guess. It would still have some quality, albeit at a lower price point.
Yeah, and one of the things that can be fun to do is, if you are really in an experimental mode, is to, at least every few purchases, instead of buying maybe a $40 bottle of wine, buy 3 $15 bottles of wine. Because we all learn a lot when we taste comparatively. And if the bottle is $15 and you only take a little bit, you probably don't feel so bad using the rest of it in cooking or whatever. But it's important to taste multiple wines at the same time to kind of advance your knowledge about wine.
It's amazing how much you learn just based on last week's exercise. For example, we had 6 different wines that were Bordeaux blends. 2 were from Tuscany, 1 was from Bordeaux, 1 was from the Santa Cruz Mountains, and 2 were from Napa Valley, including different parts of Napa Valley. So just based on that, one maybe had a higher percentage of Merlot, and then the others were more traditional blends, and some were almost all Cabernet Sauvignon. And just by tasting them single blind like that and working through it, you really learned a lot about each of those wines and your preferences. And if you just did them individually, maybe every few weeks, you could never do anything like that or have that same sort of insight.
Yes. And yes, James, it is true that every state in the United States produces wine, even Alaska. 2 weeks ago, I presented to the Congressional Wine Caucus in Washington, D.C. We did a press conference for Come Over October, and we had about 200 Congress people and their aides for not only a press conference for Come Over October, but also we followed that with a tasting of wines we were able to get wines from about 40 U.S. states to pour for all of these Congress people. And it was a blast. It was, in fact, really fun. Yep, even Alaska.
What are the grape varieties for the Alaskan wines? Is it, I would imagine, something that has a pretty short growing season?
Well, some wines are, of course, fruit wines, like Maine sent their blueberry wine, which is very famous, and Hawaii sends its pineapple wine. So, yeah,
okay.
We counted. Fruit wines are all right too, though. Okay, hey, let's cheers to Come Over October.
Yeah, certainly. And I'd encourage you all to celebrate Come Over October as well. And please do let us know in the comments below how you will be celebrating Come Over October.